The first time Carter Thompson laid eyes on Olivia Bennet, he knew his carefully ordered world was about to be upended. The annual Metropolitan Art Fundraiser Gala was supposed to be just another tedious social obligation: shake hands, write a check, maintain his reputation as a generous patron without actually having to engage with anyone for longer than a polite 5 minutes. Instead, he found himself seated across from a woman whose emerald eyes sparkled with more life than any painting hanging on the museum walls. "Table 17, the hostess said, gesturing toward a round table draped in white linen. "Enjoy your evening, Mr. Thompson." Carter nodded, surveying the table with a quick glance. 3 couples already seated, engaged in animated conversation, and 1 empty chair beside a woman in a midnight blue gown who seemed to be alone. Great. Another charity date setup, no doubt. The museum board was getting predictable. He made his way over, resigned to an evening of tedious small talk. The shipping magnate had built a global empire worth billions, navigated treacherous business deals with cutthroat competitors, but somehow these social functions still felt like the most challenging part of his wealth. "Is this seat taken?" he asked, though he knew the answer. The woman looked up, those green eyes meeting his with surprise. "I don't think so, please." She gestured to the chair, no recognition in her expression. That was unexpected. In these circles, Carter Thompson was a name everyone knew. "Carter Thompson," he offered, extending his hand. "Olivia Bennet," she replied, her handshake firm. "You seem relieved I didn't recognize you." Carter felt a smile tug at his lips, a genuine one, not the practiced version he deployed at these events. That obvious. "Only to someone who feels equally out of place," Olivia said, her voice dropping conspiratorially. "I'm just the last-minute stand-in for my boss who came down with food poisoning. I work at the Westside Community Arts Center." "Ah," Carter said, immediately understanding. The community center was one of the smaller beneficiaries of tonight's fundraiser. "So not a regular on the gala circuit. This dress is rented, and I had to watch a YouTube tutorial to figure out how to do my hair," she confessed with a laugh that seemed to brighten the entire room. "How's that for fitting in?" Carter found himself chuckling. "Honestly, refreshing." The waiter arrived with champagne, and Carter noticed how Olivia discreetly checked the table setting, trying to determine which glass was hers. He subtly pointed to the correct one, earning a grateful smile that made something in his chest tighten. "So, Mr. Thompson, Carter, please. Carter, what brings you to support the arts, secret passion for Renaissance painters? Or is this just where all the billionaires gather to compare yacht sizes?" Her eyes widened immediately. "I'm so sorry, that was completely inappropriate." Instead of being offended, Carter burst into genuine laughter. "Both, actually, though my yacht is quite modest, only 120 feet. Olivia nearly choked on her champagne. "Only 120 feet, of course, practically a dinghy." As the evening progressed through multiple courses of exquisitely prepared food that neither of them particularly noticed, Carter found himself more engaged in conversation than he had been in years. Olivia was passionate about bringing arts education to underserved communities, speaking with her hands as she described programs for at-risk youth. "You should see these kids when they finish their first painting or sculpture. It's like they suddenly realize they can create something valuable, something that matters. That's what most of us are looking for, isn't it?" Carter mused, surprising himself with the candor. "To create something that matters." Olivia tilted her head, studying him. "And what matters to the billionaire shipping magnate, besides his modest yacht? Efficiency," he answered automatically, then frowned. It was his standard response, the one he gave in business interviews. "At least that's what I tell myself." He swirled the wine in his glass. "The truth. I'm not entirely sure anymore." The orchestra began playing and couples moved to the dance floor. Carter surprised himself again by extending his hand. "Would you like to dance?" Olivia hesitated. "Full disclosure, I'm terrible, like step on your expensive shoes terrible." "I'll risk it." On the dance floor, Carter discovered Olivia hadn't been exaggerating about her dancing abilities. She was indeed terrible, counting steps under her breath and apologizing each time she trod on his toes. But her laughter was infectious, her self-deprecation endearing, and Carter couldn't remember the last time he'd enjoyed himself so thoroughly at one of these events. "I warned you," she said after a particularly misplaced step. "Worth every bruised toe," he replied, meaning it. When the evening drew to a close, Carter found himself reluctant to say goodbye. "May I have your number?" he asked as they stood waiting for the valet to bring their respective cars, his accustomed Bentley, hers a practical Prius with a dented fender. Olivia hesitated. "Look, Carter, I had a wonderful time tonight, but let's be realistic. Your world and mine don't exactly overlap." They did tonight, by chance, a random seating arrangement. Maybe, Carter conceded, or maybe it was exactly where we both needed to be. Olivia studied him for a long moment before pulling out her phone. "I must be crazy," she muttered, but she exchanged numbers with him nonetheless. Carter's driver pulled up with the Bentley and Olivia's eyebrows raised. Subtle. "I could give you a ride," he offered. "No need to venture into the peasant quarters tonight," she joked, but there was a hint of genuine discomfort in her eyes. "My car should be along soon." Carter wanted to protest, but sensed pushing would be a mistake. "I had a wonderful evening, Olivia Bennett." "So did I, Carter Thompson." She smiled, "Though I'm still not entirely convinced you're real." The next morning, Carter sat in his penthouse office overlooking the harbor, unable to concentrate on the shipping manifests in front of him. The Thompson shipping empire had started with one cargo vessel purchased by his father and had grown into a fleet that dominated global trade routes. Carter had expanded further into logistics and supply chain management, tripling the company's value in his 15 years at the helm. None of that seemed important as he stared at his phone, debating whether texting Olivia would appear too eager. His executive assistant, Margaret, who had been with him for 20 years and treated him with the stern affection of an aunt, placed a coffee on his desk. "You look distracted this morning." "The Beijing contract," Carter lied, hum. Margaret clearly didn't believe him. "Nothing to do with your dinner companion last night, the one whose background I've been asked to discreetly look into." Carter had the grace to look embarrassed. He had texted his security chief last night to run a basic background check, standard procedure with anyone who entered his orbit. "Just being cautious, of course." Margaret's knowing smile irritated him. "She seems perfectly lovely." Art history degree from State University, 6 years at the Community Arts Center, volunteers teaching art to children at the hospital on weekends. Carter felt a strange mix of relief and shame. That's all I needed to know. She's also never been married, lives in a 1-bedroom apartment in Riverdale with a cat named Vincent, presumably after Van Gogh, and her credit score is excellent despite her modest salary. "That's enough, Margaret. Just being thorough." She headed for the door. "You should call her." "You smile more when you talk about her than you have in the 5 years since your father passed." After Margaret left, Carter picked up his phone and started typing before he could overthink it. "Good morning. I hope you got home safely last night. I enjoyed our conversation and would like to continue it. Dinner this week?" He hit send before he could change his mind, then stared at the screen, feeling oddly vulnerable. 3 dots appeared almost immediately, then disappeared, then reappeared. Carter found himself holding his breath. "Good morning. I did get home safely, thank you. I enjoyed talking with you too, but I'm still not sure dinner is a good idea. Our worlds are very different." Carter frowned at the screen. Rejection wasn't something he encountered often. Different doesn't mean incompatible, just coffee then. The response came faster this time. "Coffee I can do, but somewhere normal, please. Not wherever billionaires go for their artisanal, gold-flaked cappuccinos." Carter laughed out loud. "Deal, no gold flakes. There's a place called Grounded near your center, tomorrow at 2. "You've done your research. Should I be flattered or creeped out?" "Flattered. I only cyber stalk the interesting ones." "In that case, see you at 2. I'll be the one without the yacht." Carter set down his phone, aware he was smiling like an idiot. Margaret, passing by his office, raised an eyebrow but wisely said nothing. The following afternoon, Carter arrived at Grounded 15 minutes early, having changed out of his usual tailored suit into jeans and a cashmere sweater, still expensive, but less obviously so. He dismissed his driver and walked the 6 blocks from where he'd parked, enjoying the anonymity of being on foot in a part of the city he rarely visited. The coffee shop was busy with an eclectic mix of students, professionals, and artistic types. Carter ordered a simple black coffee and found a table in the corner. At exactly 2 o'clock, Olivia rushed in, her cheeks flushed from the cold, hair slightly wind-blown. "Sorry if I'm late," she said, unwinding a colorful scarf from her neck. "We had a minor crisis involving a 5-year-old, finger paint, and what used to be a white wall." "Sounds like an improvement to me," Carter said. "Abstract expressionism." Olivia laughed, shrugging off her coat to reveal a simple sweater and jeans that somehow looked more elegant on her than designer clothes did on the women he usually met. "I'll tell the parents you said so." "What can I get you?" Carter asked, standing. "Oh. You don't need to." Seeing his expression, she relented. "Fine, latte please, but I'm getting the next one." When he returned with her drink, Olivia was looking at him with curious eyes. "No one recognized you," she observed. "I half expected people to be asking for autographs or something." Carter shrugged. "I'm not that kind of billionaire. Business press, financial circles, shipping industry, that's where I'm known. I prefer it that way." "Is that why you've never married? To maintain privacy?" The question was direct, but her tone was merely curious, not probing. "That's quite a leap," Carter said, surprised. "Sorry, occupational hazard. When you work with kids, you get used to asking the awkward questions directly." Carter found himself answering honestly. "Privacy is part of it, but mostly I've been focused on the company. My father built something remarkable, and when he died, continuing that legacy became everything." He paused. "What about you?" "No husband lurking somewhere, wondering why you're having coffee with me." Olivia shook her head. "No lurking husbands. I was engaged once during college. He wanted me to be someone. I wasn't the kind of wife who attends galas regularly and knows which fork to use." She smiled ruefully. "Clearly not my strength." "His loss," Carter said simply. "What would you be doing right now if you weren't here?" Olivia asked, changing the subject. "Conference call with our Singapore office, reviewing quarterly projections, pretending to care about the design for our new corporate headquarters." "And you skipped all that for coffee with me. I'm flattered." "You should be," Carter said, surprising himself with his honesty. "I haven't rearranged my schedule for anyone in years." Olivia studied him, her green eyes thoughtful. "Why me, Carter? You could be having coffee with models, actresses, women who navigate your world effortlessly." "Because you asked which painting was my favorite last night, not how much I paid for it." Their coffee stretched into 2 hours, the conversation flowing easily from art to travel to family. Carter learned that Olivia had grown up in a small town with parents who were teachers, that she'd worked 3 jobs to put herself through college, that her dream was to open a larger community arts center with programs for seniors and veterans as well as children. "I should get back," Olivia said eventually, checking her watch. "The afternoon class starts in 30 minutes. "I'll walk you," Carter offered. Outside, the afternoon had turned crisp, the sky a clear blue. As they walked the 4 blocks to the community center, Olivia pointed out her favorite spots: a bookstore with a resident cat, a tiny gallery showcasing local artists, a bakery that made the best sourdough in the city. "This is me," she said as they reached a converted warehouse with colorful murals decorating the exterior. "You want to see inside?" Carter did. The center was nothing like the sleek museums and galleries he usually frequented. The space was open and bright, with artwork in various stages of completion, the air smelling of paint and clay. Several teenagers were setting up easels, while an older man worked intently on a pottery wheel in the corner. "This is amazing," Carter said, genuinely impressed. "It's small, but we make it work," Olivia replied, pride evident in her voice. "Miss Olivia?" A young girl, maybe 7 or 8, came running over. "I finished my project. Want to see?" "Of course I do, Zoe. Lead the way." Olivia glanced at Carter. "Care to join the tour?" For the next 20 minutes, Carter was introduced to students and volunteers, shown artwork ranging from childish scribbles to surprisingly sophisticated pieces, and witnessed firsthand the respect and affection everyone clearly had for Olivia. She knew each person's name, asked specific questions about their work, offered encouragement that felt genuine rather than patronizing. "You're incredible with them," Carter observed as they stood slightly apart, watching the afternoon class begin. Olivia shrugged, but he could see she was pleased. "They just want to be seen, to know that what they create matters." "Don't we all?" Carter said softly. Their eyes met, and for a moment the noise of the busy center seemed to fade away. Then Olivia's colleague called her name, breaking the spell. "I really do need to get to class," she said, looking genuinely regretful. "Have dinner with me," Carter said. "A real dinner, not a gala with rubber chicken and small talk." Olivia hesitated. "Carter, just dinner." "Wherever you want," she bit her lip, then nodded. "Okay, but I choose the place and we split the bill." Carter knew better than to argue. "Text me the details. I'm free any evening this week. Tomorrow, 8 o'clock, I'll send you the address. I'll be there." As Carter left the center, he realized he was looking forward to dinner with an anticipation he hadn't felt in years. His phone buzzed with messages from his executive team, reminders of calls and meetings, but for once, none of it seemed urgent. The restaurant Olivia chose was a small Italian place tucked away on a side street, the kind of neighborhood gem that never made it into guidebooks, but had loyal patrons who kept it busy. The owner greeted Olivia with kisses on both cheeks and led them to a corner table with a candle flickering between worn leather menus. "They make the pasta fresh daily," Olivia said after they'd ordered, "and the wine list is short but perfect. How did you find this place?" Carter asked, genuinely curious. It was worlds away from the Michelin-starred establishments he typically frequented. "I teach the owner's grandson on Saturdays. Marco has autism and struggles in traditional school settings, but he's incredibly talented with colors and patterns." Olivia smiled at a passing waiter. "They pay me in pasta, which is a bargain I'm happy with." Their food arrived, simple but exquisite dishes that reminded Carter of a trip to Tuscany years ago. As they ate, Olivia asked about his work, showing a surprising knowledge of global shipping routes and supply chain logistics. "I did my research," she admitted when he commented on it. "Figured I should know what I'm getting into." "And what have you concluded?" Carter asked, suddenly very interested in her answer. Olivia twisted pasta around her fork thoughtfully. "That you work too much. That you're brilliant at what you do but maybe don't allow yourself much life outside it. That despite being surrounded by people constantly, you might be lonely." The directness of her assessment caught him off guard. "That's perceptive. Am I wrong?" "No," Carter admitted, "but the same could be said about you. The center is your life." "Touché." Olivia raised her wine glass in acknowledgement. "Maybe that's why we're enjoying each other's company. We both understand dedication. Or maybe we both need to learn balance," Carter suggested. Their conversation flowed easily through dinner and dessert, a tiramisu they shared, Olivia insisting it was too good not to try despite being full. When the check came, she reached for it firmly. "We had an agreement," she reminded him. "We did," Carter acknowledged, though it went against every instinct he had. "How about I leave the tip?" Olivia narrowed her eyes but nodded. "Fair compromise." Outside, the night had turned cool, stars visible despite the city lights. "May I walk you home?" Carter asked. "It's 15 blocks. "Perfect." They walked slowly, their shoulders occasionally brushing, talking about everything and nothing: favorite books, travel disasters, childhood pets. When they reached Olivia's apartment building, a pre-war brick structure with window boxes and a small stoop, Carter felt strangely reluctant to say goodnight. "Thank you for dinner," he said. "Best Italian food I've had outside of Italy." "I told you." Olivia smiled up at him, her eyes reflecting the streetlight. "Thank you for walking me home." Carter hesitated, then leaned down slowly, giving her time to pull away if she wanted. Instead, Olivia rose slightly on her toes to meet him halfway. The kiss was gentle, tentative at first, then deepening as she stepped closer, her hands coming to rest lightly on his chest. When they finally broke apart, both were slightly breathless. "I'd invite you up," Olivia said, "but I have an early class tomorrow and Vincent isn't used to overnight guests." "Vincent, your cat, not a boyfriend, right?" Carter confirmed, only half joking. Olivia laughed. "Yes, my cat, and he's very particular about who gets to see me in the morning." "Another time then." Carter brushed a strand of hair from her face. "I'd like to see you again, soon." "I'd like that too," Olivia admitted, "though I'm still not entirely sure this makes sense. Let me worry about that part." One more kiss, and then she was gone, disappearing into the building with a final wave and smile that stayed with Carter all the way home to his penthouse, which suddenly seemed too large and too empty. Over the next few weeks, Carter and Olivia fell into a rhythm of sorts. Coffee near her center, dinners at small restaurants she introduced him to, walks through parts of the city Carter had never properly explored despite living there for decades. He showed her his world too, a private viewing at a gallery where he'd been a patron for years, a sailing trip on his modest yacht that had Olivia alternating between awe and teasing him mercilessly. "You realize this thing is bigger than my entire apartment building, right?" she said as he gave her a tour of the vessel. "It's peaceful on the water," Carter defended himself. "A good place to think." "I bet," Olivia trailed her fingers along the polished railing, "though I can't imagine having to choose between relaxing in the hot tub or the infinity pool." "Such difficult decisions," Carter laughed, pulling her close. "Mock all you want, you're enjoying yourself." "I am," she admitted, kissing him lightly. "Though I'm a little afraid to touch anything, everything looks so expensive." "It's just stuff," Carter said, surprising himself with how much he meant it. "None of it matters compared to having you here." The look Olivia gave him then surprised, touched, and something deeper he wasn't ready to name made his heart beat faster. They spent the day sailing along the coast, and when they returned to the marina that evening, Carter realized he hadn't checked his email or phone once, possibly a first in his adult life. As autumn deepened into winter, they settled into a relationship that somehow bridged their different worlds. Carter found himself spending more time at Olivia's modest apartment than his penthouse, getting to know Vincent the cat, who initially regarded him with feline suspicion but eventually deigned to sleep on his lap, and discovering the simple pleasure of takeout and movie nights. At the Thompson shipping holiday party, Carter surprised everyone by bringing Olivia as his date. The company's executive team, accustomed to seeing their CEO either alone or with sophisticated socialites who never lasted more than a few dates, watched in amazement as Carter remained by Olivia's side all evening, his usual restless energy noticeably absent. "She's good for him," Margaret observed to the CFO as they watched Carter laugh at something Olivia said. "I haven't seen him this relaxed in years." "Let's hope it lasts," the CFO replied. The board was getting worried about burnout. Olivia, for her part, had initially been intimidated by the event, but quickly won people over with her genuine interest and lack of pretension. By the end of the evening, she was deep in conversation with the head of the Thompson Foundation about potential partnerships with the community center. "Your team is surprised to see you with someone like me," Olivia noted as they rode back to her apartment in Carter's car. "Someone intelligent, beautiful, and passionate about what she does." Carter raised an eyebrow. "They shouldn't be. You know what I mean." "I'm not exactly from your usual dating pool." Carter took her hand. "That's precisely why it's working. You're real, Olivia. You care about things that actually matter." As December turned to January, their relationship deepened further. Carter found himself spending 3 or 4 nights a week at Olivia's place, keeping a toothbrush and change of clothes there, learning to navigate her tiny kitchen to make breakfast while she showered. The only cloud on their horizon was the community center's uncertain future. The building had been sold to a developer, and the lease was ending in 6 months with no renewal option. Olivia was stressed, spending evenings searching for affordable alternatives and coming up empty. "Everything in our price range is too small or too far from the neighborhoods we serve," she explained one night as they lay in her bed, her head on his chest. "And commercial rents in the area have doubled in the past 5 years." Carter listened, offering support but careful not to suggest financial solutions he knew she would reject out of hand. Olivia was fiercely independent, and while she had grown comfortable with their relationship, she remained adamant about paying her own way. The solution came to Carter unexpectedly during a meeting about Thompson Shipping's urban development projects. The company had purchased several blocks of warehouses near the harbor for future expansion, buildings that would sit empty for at least 2 years before construction began. "What if we converted one temporarily for community use?" Carter suggested to his development team. "Good publicity, tax benefits, and it puts the space to use while we finalize plans." His team saw the strategic advantages, and within weeks, a plan was in place. Carter waited for the right moment to present it to Olivia, knowing she would be skeptical of anything that seemed like charity. The opportunity came during a weekend away at a small inn in the countryside, a Valentine's gift Olivia had insisted on splitting the cost of. After dinner by the fireplace, Carter broached the subject carefully. "The company has some warehouse space sitting empty near Riverfront Park," he mentioned casually. "We're looking for temporary tenants while we develop longer-term plans." Olivia looked up from her wine. "Really?" "That's not far from where we are now, about 10 blocks. Carter kept his tone casual. "The space is twice what you currently have, and we're offering significantly below market rent to the right tenant, someone who would bring value to the community while we work on development plans." Olivia narrowed her eyes. "This sounds suspiciously convenient." "It's good business," Carter insisted. "Empty buildings are targets for vandalism, and having a respected community organization as a tenant improves our standing with the neighborhood association, which we need for future permits. And the fact that I happen to run such an organization is just coincidence." Olivia was skeptical but clearly intrigued. "Fortuitous timing," Carter suggested. "The development committee doesn't know about us. They just know I recommended reaching out to your center based on its reputation." That much was true. Carter had been careful to recuse himself from the final decision-making process to ensure everything was above board. Olivia studied him for a long moment. "I'd want a proper lease. Standard terms, no special treatment." "Absolutely." "And this isn't some backdoor way of you subsidizing the center. The rent is low but fair for the market and condition of the building. We're offering the same terms to several potential tenants." Also true, though Carter had made sure the community center's application would be the strongest. Olivia took a deep breath. "I'll need to discuss it with the board, see the space, have our lawyer review any agreement." "Of course." Carter tried not to look too pleased. "The property manager can arrange a tour next week if you're interested." "I am," Olivia admitted. "Thank you for thinking of us." 2 months later, the community center signed a 3-year lease for the warehouse space, with an option for 2 additional years at a predetermined rate increase. Olivia threw herself into planning the renovation and expansion of programs. Her enthusiasm infectious as she described new classes for seniors, veterans, and expanded youth offerings. Carter found himself increasingly involved, offering practical advice on the renovation, connecting Olivia with contractors who owed him favors, and even rolling up his sleeves on weekends to help with painting and basic construction. His executive team was astonished to see their billionaire CEO in jeans and a t-shirt, covered in paint, but Margaret simply smiled knowingly. "You're rebuilding more than just a community center," she observed one Monday morning when Carter arrived at the office with paint still under his fingernails despite a thorough shower. "It's a good project," Carter replied non-committally. "Hum." Margaret handed him his schedule for the day. "You've blocked off every weekend for the next month. The grand opening is in 6 weeks. And the board meeting in Tokyo," Carter hesitated. The meeting had been on his calendar for months, a critical negotiation for expanding their Pacific routes. "Reschedule or set up a video conference." Margaret's eyebrows shot up. "You're turning down a face-to-face with the Nakamura Group for a community center opening?" "Some things are more important," Carter said simply. The realization had been gradual but undeniable. Somewhere between that first gala and now, his priorities had fundamentally shifted. The company was still important, but it no longer defined him completely. There was more to life than shipping routes and profit margins. There was Olivia, with her passion and integrity. There were the children at the center, whose faces lit up when they created something new. There was the satisfaction of building something tangible, something that improved lives directly rather than through the abstract flow of global commerce. The night before the community center's grand opening, Carter took Olivia to dinner at the small Italian restaurant where they'd had their first real date. The owner greeted them warmly, leading them to their table in the corner. "To new beginnings," Carter toasted, raising his wine glass. "And unexpected partnerships," Olivia added, clinking her glass against his. She looked radiant, tired, but happy after weeks of preparation. "I still can't believe we pulled it off." "You pulled it off," Carter corrected. "I just provided muscle and connections. Don't sell yourself short." "You've been amazing." Olivia reached across the table to take his hand. "The kids adore you, you know, especially when you let them help paint that mural even though they got more paint on you than the wall." Carter smiled at the memory. "Worth every stain." Their food arrived and they ate in comfortable silence for a few minutes before Carter cleared his throat. "I've been thinking about something," he began, suddenly nervous. "The past 6 months have been the happiest of my life." Olivia squeezed his hand. "Mine too." "When we met, you said our worlds were too different, that it wouldn't work." Carter met her eyes. "Do you still believe that?" "No," Olivia said softly. "I was wrong. Our worlds aren't so different at the core. We both care about building something meaningful, about making a difference." "Exactly," Carter took a deep breath. "Which is why I'd like to build something else with you, a life together." Olivia's eyes widened as Carter reached into his pocket and produced a small velvet box, opening it to reveal a ring and emerald surrounded by diamonds, elegant but not ostentatious. "Olivia Bennett, will you marry me?" The restaurant had gone quiet, the other diners watching discreetly. Olivia's eyes filled with tears as she looked from the ring to Carter's face. "Are you sure? I still can't tell which fork to use at fancy dinners." Carter laughed. "I've never been more sure of anything, and we can eat with our hands for all I care as long as we're together." "Then yes," Olivia said, her voice clear and certain. "Yes, I will marry you." As Carter slipped the ring onto her finger, the restaurant erupted in applause, the owner appearing with champagne on the house to celebrate. Carter had never been one for public displays, but in that moment, he couldn't bring himself to care about anything except the woman across from him, her eyes shining with happiness that matched his own. 1 year later, they were married in a ceremony that blended their worlds held in the sculpture garden of the museum where they'd first met, with guests ranging from shipping executives to the children from the community center, who presented them with a collaborative art piece as a wedding gift. Vincent the cat served as ring bearer, carried down the aisle in a small basket by Marco, the restaurant owner's grandson, who had blossomed under Olivia's continued guidance. The Thompson Community Arts Center, as it was now officially named, had expanded its programs to 3 additional locations throughout the city, funded by a foundation that Carter and Olivia established together. Carter remained CEO of Thompson Shipping, but had delegated more day-to-day operations, finding a balance that allowed him to be fully present in his personal life while still honoring his father's legacy. As they danced at their reception, Carter held Olivia close, marveling at the journey that had brought them here. "Happy?" he asked, though he knew the answer from the radiance of her smile. "Completely," Olivia replied, her emerald ring catching the light as she reached up to touch his face. "Who would have thought a random seating arrangement at a gala would lead to all this?" "I'm beginning to think it wasn't so random," Carter mused. "More like the universe getting it right for once." "The billionaire turns romantic," Olivia teased. "What would your board say?" "That I finally made the smartest investment of my life," Carter replied, bending to kiss his wife as their friends and family looked on, celebrating a love that had bridged 2 worlds and created something better than either could have imagined alone.